to our Dentist Job Connect TV Zoom stage. Dr. Firas Ziadat. Firas, you can start your video when you are ready. Here he is, all the way from a different part of the country. I can't convince him to move to Philadelphia, even though he likes the food. Dr. Firas, welcome to Dentist Job Connect TV. I always like to start with this. We will have people listening to this, but we have a lot of people watching in on this and they can see you. Where are you sitting right now? Where are you sitting right now?
I'm at my office in Tempe, Arizona.
Office in Tempe, Arizona. So you're not a fan of the Philly cold. We only can invite you during the hot weather seasons here to enjoy Philly with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great food, great people too. So
you can walk around everywhere. How many times when you came to Super Dentist Booths, how many times did you get in a car and have to drive somewhere?
Only to the airport.
Oh, 0 times. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But this is, you are a featured guest on this. But before we get to your story, I always like to have those previews of sharing things, of patient communication and stories. Did you, in those first 10 minutes, did anything stand out to you that you saw me say or share that you said, oh man, that's really good to remember, or oh, I wish someone had told me that when I was in dental school, or I'm glad I listened to Paul by paying attention to Dental Nachos? Anything you saw in that first 10 minutes?
Definitely, like attorneys for any type of signature. Like if you're gonna sign a contract, I think that's a big thing. That sometimes when we get out of school, that $1,000 or $500 or $1,500 seems a lot to have a lawyer review your associate contract, but I think it's well worth it.
I mean, it's the biggest treatment plan of your life. You're getting a treatment plan of your life, and you just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars going. I actually did just talk to a D4, and maybe some people are meeting me for the first time. You've met me in person. I kindly annoy dentists, and they go, I don't have money for an attorney. And then I go on Instagram and I go, was this you in Cancun? Are they giving away Cancun trips for free now? And they go, that was me. I said, find the money for both. And in all authenticity, we're delivering value. I told a dental student who's in a bad situation now, first year out of school, and they said, Paul, I didn't have the $750. I said, you should have asked your parents, ask a friend, take out a credit card. It's the contracts that are being shown to associates can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and not just the money, it's also your morale. So that's such a good point there. So I want, you're sitting in your office in Tempe, Arizona. Now let's just go back and orient our audience to you. Take us through where you went to dental school. You can take us through the years and just a little summary of your journey.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for encouraging me to do this. I'll do my best to kind of explain. This is my first time, I guess, recording. Thanks again. So I moved to the United States in 2007. I've always, my dream was to become a dentist. And then I went to IU, Indiana University, for undergraduate. And then I started dental school in 2014 in Mesa, Arizona, A.T. Still University, or ASDO. Graduated in 2018. And then I started my first associateship job right last weekend of August. So I took a little summer break, went to Europe, went to Jordan. It was a nice trip, and then came back last weekend of August. Started my first associateship, which was 3 days a week. And then the following week, I started my other associate job, which was 3 days a week as well.
Awesome. I'm gonna do this for us. I don't know if you have a family too. I say this. I don't interrupt. I just interject with good ideas. So I'm just going to interject on a story. And you're such a great guy to talk to. I know we're personal friends. So all these questions come with curiosity and not criticism. Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental. But oftentimes, because dentist school does not promote a lot of self-esteem and security, that if decisions are questioned, you think that they're negative. But I'm asking with curiosity for our listeners. What was the reason you said, hey, I'm going to go right into the real world and I'm going to skip doing a GPR AAGD? I'm going to go right into the real world.
Actually, I applied and I got accepted into an AAGD program. And I really liked the director there. And but unfortunately, it was kind of a last minute decision. I decided to kind of get in and start working because I didn't want to do everything and just kind of get in the real world and start doing. I think the best practice is doing. So that was my method. When I got out of school, I was, uncomfortable in some situations. Lucky for me, I had good mentors.
Now, pause there for a second, because people are deciding on GPRs, AAGDs now, and I am an equal opportunity share. I work with DSOs to help them find associates. I work with private practice dentists. I own 2 practices with my brother. We hired associates out of GPRs. One of my questions I've never worked, I've worked with in my dad's practice. I built it, but I never had to get a job outside of it. Tell me about, you're in the real world out of dental school and you have this mentor. How did the mentor help you during the game of dentistry basketball? Example, your crown didn't fit. Did they walk in and show you how to adjust it? Did they tell you behind the scenes? We talk a lot about mentorship, but I would love to know what that actually looked like for you.
Sure. Yeah. So a few times, mainly would be like x-rays. I would like tell the assistant, especially when I first got out of school, like, oh, can you take an x-ray? And then I would go back and talk to the owner doc and kind of discuss what happened. If a crown wasn't seating, like what could be happening. Or a root canal, like the first time when I started, because we were very fortunate at AT Still to do a lot of externships where we actually did root canals on molars outside of school. But the first time I did, you're in the real world, you start doing first molars, second molars, you get stuck a little bit. One time I remember I was doing a second maxillary molar and the doctor came in, he helped me actually kind of guide show me where the canals are. So
he must have been pretty confident. And I've done that with people, but even when my brother came out of his GPR, one of the things that's hard about dentistry, and I'd like people to understand, because you may have an associate one day. So I live in Philadelphia, home of some of the best medical institutions on planet Earth, like Children's Hospital Philadelphia and all these things. And it's very normal in a hospital for 4 residents come in and watch an attending, for 3 people to poke at you, for 2 people to take your blood pressure. But for some reason in dentistry, it's not easy to have another dentist come into the operatory. So for you to have that mentor, how did you find that job out of dental school?
That's a great question. So at the beginning of my fourth year, I actually went on Google and started calling offices that had 4.5 ratings and above. So I started calling them asking them if they're looking for an associate. And lucky for me, one of the offices that was looking for an associate, they were really good friends with one of the directors, my endo director at school. So they called him actually before I knew that, because I sent them my resume, and then they called me for an interview.
I give you a lot of credit. You were truly ABCing, always be connected. But now it wasn't invented back then. I was invented in 2018, but Job Connect was not invented. So dentistjobconnect.com. Do you know, Frost, that we help any dentist at the time of this recording find a job totally for free? And if you're listening, upload your resume. We have 600 plus now. I want to get thousands because dentists are searching for you on there. Would you use Dentist Job Connect now if you were looking for an associateship?
Absolutely. And hopefully a few years, maybe down the road is, that's
you're going to be like Todd. You're going to be new Todd. So we left off with, you did your associateship. Catch us up from there. You leave dental school, you start your associateship. This is 2018, and bring us to the present day along the way.
Yeah. So 2018 and 19, I was an associate at 2 offices, great offices. I was very fortunate, great team, great doctors. Then in March of 2020, actually, 1 week before the COVID shutdown, I bought my first dental practice and closed on it. And then we were closed for 6 weeks. So that was,
that must have been incredibly stressful. Now dentists love details for us. I mean, they freaking love it. Like if I post a case on Del Nachos, they go, what was the patient's 3rd grade teacher's name? I go, how do you need to know that? They go, I just would like to know, right? So there is a real thing. Too many details are a problem. Not enough details are dangerous. So too many details problem, not enough details are dangerous. But my daughter likes TikTok. I like TikTok. There's like a meme that you sped on by that. You bought the practice. How did you find the practice you bought?
Great question. So I was actually at a course. It was an implant course by Dr. Steve Rasner, and I think he's in the East Coast. He's a great
Raz
guy.
Is my buddy. He's my friend.
Yeah, he's one of my mentors. I text him a lot, and he got me into implants too. He was, I think, the first hands-on course I took was with him, and he came to Arizona. So at the course, one of the doctors I was with at the course was telling me that because every time I meet a wiser, older dentist, I would ask them if they're interested or like if they're planning on retiring or looking for somebody to possibly associate and buy the practice. Then he told me that his buddy of his is looking to sell his practice. His son is not coming back. His son is a dentist, and he doesn't want to come back to Arizona, so he's looking to sell the practice. And we've met, we've connected, and the rest is history, I guess.
I love that, and that's another ABC. Always be connecting. I encourage dentists. I mean, here's the thing: if you think of your career, these 4 biggest decisions for us, as maybe you think of them like dating. You're going to meet someone and get married. You're going to have kids, right? This is your career. You got to be out and about during big decision times. When you're finding a job, go to CE courses, sit next to older dentists, say, hey, I'm looking for a job in Austin, Texas. Maybe they don't have a job there, but their friend does. And I give you a lot of credit because for some reason, dental students, they're so amazing at doing the next thing right. Apply to college, apply to dental school, take the DAT. But when it comes to finding a job or buying a practice, they think it's going to fall out of the sky into their lap. And it only happens by going out there and just putting your face out there, really, and I compliment you on doing that. And I think what's, as I get to know you, I'm friends with your buddy, Ben Baranis. I don't know if he's up watching this yet, but like,
I hope so.
these words have a lot of unfair judgment to them, but I'll just use like, I'm extroverted. My brother tends to be more introverted. Ben's extroverted like me, right? Crazy. You have a sense of introversion. And these are words that I hope change over time because I think they have too much judgment. But it just goes to show you, you don't have to be some crazy Dr. Nacho or some out there Ben to find a job. You did it in your own quietest way. And I really compliment you on that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's just something you got to put yourself out there and just push yourself a little more. Because
that's when the magic happens. You now have a practice because of it. Now I'm going to get back to this for a second, but I also want to kindly annoy everybody watching for a second. And I'm going to use you as the example. So I didn't sprout up out of earth in 2017. I graduated from dental school in 2002. I did a multi-year general practice residency, or I learned to place implants. You've mentioned a couple times about being at CE. Where did you find the money and why did you think it was important? Because I find too often that new dentists, and I understand the feeling, say, I can't afford to go to CE. I can't afford to do that. And I said, you just took a $500,000 CE course for 4 years called dental school. And I don't know if it was that good. So how did you commit, another C word, to CE both financially and time? And how has that helped you?
I think priority and goals. My priority was always dental. So I've always invested in CE courses. So I think having it as priority, like versus going to Cancun on vacation, I haven't been, on too many vacations since I started working. So I value good CEs and I've taken a lot of hands-on CE courses. And I think it was the best investment I've ever done. Honestly,
it's because good habits early, whether it's with nutrition, whether it's with saving money, it's the good habits early. And I also want to share, for it might help someone, one of our sponsors for us, people can reach out to me to learn more about this sponsor. There's a group called Dr. Doc Lending started by anesthesiologists, and they basically will lend up to $100,000 to dentists or doctors for personal loans, right? No collateral, no things like that. And the end here is you can use it for things like someone used it to purchase equipment to be a traveling specialist from Nachos. That was great. Sadly, people also need to use it for things like funerals. They also have used it for fertility treatment. But one of the things is not having access to funding to grow things early can be a challenge. So I say, take out a loan for a continuum that's going to help you, and you're going to learn new skills to pay it back by the time it's done. I did a 3-year general practice residency. I made less than $50,000 a year for 3 years when I could have been out working. But I find that all dentists at any age or stage really value doing CE. And I think all of us, I wish I did more, to be honest, earlier in my career.
And that's kind of how I looked at it, to be honest with you. And that was the main reason I didn't do an AHD, because I was fine making the basic dental salary, but spending half of it or more than half of it on CE courses. So I was okay with that. And that's how I looked at it. That's kind of what pushed me into just starting to work and just investing in a lot of CE.
And one of the things here as we watch this, and I know this will be watched, over 10,000 times over the next few years. You mentioned something, and life is not about always what you know, it's about who you know. Like, Ben, he brought you to Boost Camp. He probably said, let's go see this crazy Nacho guy. But because you trusted Ben, you came and saw me, and now we get to be friends and you've learned through that community.
100%. Yeah.
Dr. Stephen Rasner is a true giant. And so I had him speak to my group in 2010.
He's great.
There's two dentists, me and another dentist, that can credit Dr. Stephen Rasner for really changing how they thought about patient communication and really changing. So one is Paul Goodman, that's me. I've created Dental Nachos, which has 45,000 followers at the time of this. It's not a contest issue. And the other is Dr. Lincoln Harris of Ripe Global. When Dr. Lincoln Harris saw Steve Rasner lecture, he said, I have to change the way I interact with patients. So sometimes the right person at the right time in your career does amazing things for you, like it did for me. And I hope that I have to play a small role for that for you. So it's just to encourage everybody listening, get yourself out there to meet those people. So now back to March of 2020, you buy the practice, the world shuts down for us. I got to give you credit. That's not happened to me. I just shut my practice down, but it was a high school age practice. So I knew it well. You got a baby age practice. So March 2020, you buy the practice, you found it through connections with CE. Tell us about your practice owner journey.
Yeah, it was a new baby, new practice, new house. So it was kind of all things together. And then the world shut down for a few weeks. Honestly, I mean, it was a stressful time. I'll be honest with you. Lucky for me, one of my buddies, actually, he worked at an emergency clinic and they were looking for somebody part-time. And that's when I started. I started in April, before even they opened, because I think in May is when they officially opened. I started working there 3 days a week at this associate job for emergencies, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And just continued working there. And then here at the office, it was kind of an older chart office. So I used those 6 weeks to we did some painting, changed pictures, a lot of the scanning. That took most of the time, really. Yeah. So we switched to digital and, bought intraoral cameras. So we used this time to the best I could, at least.
What's something for us, this happens with all of us, right? So I got I got two small human beings that live in my house, otherwise known as children. How many do you have?
Two, one, 3 and 1.
Yeah. So I got an 8 and a 4-year-old, and this always happens. So I invested, actually, my dad kindly bought it for me. I worked with my dad for 11 years till he passed away. I am not a cheap person in anything, right? If anything, I can tend to overspend. But when we were looking at strollers back in 2014, and my wife said the strollers are $1,500 to $2,500, I was like, that's stupid. I had this small stroller. My wife's like, no, we live in the city. So my dad kindly bought us this Bugaboo stroller, which 8 years later is outside this door. It was a great buy, right? I would buy the Bugaboo again, especially if you live in Philadelphia, because a stroller is like the handpiece of your parenting life, right?
Yeah.
But then we bought all this other junk I wouldn't buy again. We didn't buy it for our second child. They said, you need this, right? So you learn. What's something you would wish you knew when you bought a practice, or if you went back, you wouldn't do this again? Did you try to go paperless too soon? Did you fire a team member too soon? Did you keep a team member? People always ask this. You're 3 years, you're just like a year and a half into practice ownership. What's something that you would do different if you went back?
That's a great question. I think I would, I made a little list of things. I think I would pay attention a lot more to where people live from the practice, because sometimes what happens is, what I found out, it was a small percentage, but some of the people that used to live here, lived an hour away now because they moved, but they've been coming here to this practice for X amount of years, for 20, 30, because it's a 38-year-old practice. When I bought it. So those names, for example, would be names that just because they're an hour away now, don't come to you anymore. They want to switch dentists. That was one thing I found was interesting, because in the beginning we had a few phone calls.
You bring that up. I talk with people about that. I actually, what was when you bought the practice, was it a mixture of insurance and fee for service? Was it all insurance?
It was only a Delta Premier practice and a fee for service. So it was mainly fee for service practice.
So I really understand this now as a broker, and we can help you with your practice purchase decision. If you text BUY to 215-798-9897, you can talk with Brandon from my team, and he is awesome at helping you just figure out the next step at no cost, and then we can point you in the right direction. The more fee for service the practice, the more likely people who live far away are going to leave. It's a really good point, because that's their moment to say, oh, it's not that I don't like the new Dr. Z. It's not that I don't think he's a good dentist. It's just usually people come to you from far away are either afraid of the dentist or you did a lot of treatment on them. It's one of those two things.
True.
And if there's, so that's a really, really good point there. So you purchased the practice, you've been a practice owner for the past year and a half. We're going to get to paying off your debt soon, but just tell us about, if someone's listening saying, what's it like to be a practice owner for 18 months? The highs, the lows, the goods, tell us about that a little bit.
That's a great question. So when I bought the practice, actually, the staff actually all, changed. It wasn't, I didn't fire anyone. They just kind of left. So I bought the practice. They all left. It was three staff members, I guess. Lucky for me, one of the assistants I was working at in my associateship job, she agreed to come here and help me. So she's still my assistant. So she came here. And I think just managing, what is it? I think Howard France says it best in his book, like people, time, and then just dentistry. That's, I think the challenge is sometimes dealing with just kind of managing, I would say, staff, people, kind of emotions. That's, I think,
I always say owning a dental practice for us is like owning a circus where the animals don't try to eat you, just slowly annoy you to death. Why does the draft get off on July 4th? And the owners, we're just as big a problem. We're people too. We have feelings. We cause problems. We're inconsistent. We say things like, no matter what, front desk, nobody gets to get their crown without paying their patient portion. Then Millie comes in and the front desk goes, donor goes, let Millie go. And the front desk wants to just roll their eyes so hard they're going to sprain them at you. So one of the things I ask people, and you can think about this as we go along, but I asked this to Dr. Lincoln Harris. So this is Dr. Lincoln Harris, founder of Ripe Global, 80,000 member Facebook group, best of the best dentist, does soft tissue grafting, does implants from Australia. I said to him, what do you wish you did sooner in your career? What do you wish you did sooner in your career? Because they think, oh, Link, you got it all figured. I said, I wish I paid for coaching sooner. When I was younger, I thought I had to figure out all this stuff on my own, whether he thought he was cheap, whether he thought he was it was about his ego. So he said, I wish I got help sooner. So what I encourage you to do for us is always find someone who can help you with your stress points. It could be insurance billing. That was one for me. We outsourced it. You can't outsource managing your team, but you most definitely can get help from people who do this every day, like the awesome Kira Dents, who's been a sponsor of Dental Nachos. I know you've seen her speak before. These coaches, it also is this, and everyone listening to this can understand this. I have a 4-year-old and you have a 3-year-old. If we ask them to do something like make their bed or just make their bed, what am I insane to make your bed? Pick up this off the floor. They know us too well that they think they can get away with it. If my sister comes by for us, aunt or uncle, and says, oh, can you pick up your stuff off the floor, Drew? They'll do it for my sister because it's a different voice. And it's the same thing with your team. When you bring in some different voices, even if they say the same thing you've been saying, it doesn't come with the same energy. So I cannot encourage everyone here enough to get the right help when they need it, especially coaching. So now for us, what people have been waiting for, okay, the most exciting part of our show, and I just want you to walk through this. So some of these are going to be details. You graduated with about how much in student loans in 2018?
493,000 and change.
Awesome. So I just want to catch everybody up. We're watching how to find an associate job that will not make you cry, plus a dentist that paid off $493,000 in dental student loans in 3 years. If you're watching or listening and you want to get a copy of this recording sent to you, just text PAID, PAID, to 215-798-9897. So you're Dr. Z, 2018, they send you something that has this on it, right? That this is what you owe.
That's right.
And before we launch into this, I want to share, paying off all of your loans, listeners, may not be the right thing to do immediately. True. Maybe you want to stretch them out. So this is just a success story. It's not a don't try this at home like TV from the 80s. It's just a story. So you got 493,000. Before you get into the dollars and cents, literally, what was motivating you? And I know some of this comes from feeling, some from facts, to pay them off as soon as possible.
That's a really good question. So for me, it was a personal goal. For me and then for my wife, of course. That was just our personal goal. So I don't recommend it for everyone. If that's not your personal goal, this is just our story. This is what we did. I was fortunate enough to have my wife. She's a clinical pharmacist.
Gotcha.
So we said, when I graduated, we said, let's just not, like, why don't we just get rid of this as soon as we can? The best plan of action, because I did have some mentors, was to pretty much accumulate all, what we're making in order for us to buy a practice, because I know the best and fastest way to pay off your, I know it sounds counterintuitive, is to actually take more loans and buy a practice.
Yeah.
So what we did is we were just paying the minimum payments for the first, I think about the first year, we were just making the minimum payments, but we had a savings account that we were not touching, that all that money, pretty much everything I'd made, went to. So we just lived pretty much.
So I'm going to interject here for us. Smart move. So yes. I used to give this course, I'm a Dentist Now What, for years at Penn, right? Way before Nacho time. And people go, Paul, how do I pay off my loans like fast? Paul, how do I pay off my loans fast, right? And I go, really simple. Marry someone who makes money, right? And it's a joke, but it's also true. And you're being authentic. You have a partner that's yes. involved in your day-to-day finances that makes over $60,000 a year, right? You don't have to tell her what she makes, but over that amount of money, right? When yes. she was full-time. So you're telling us the whole story here. So everyone should listen, and I make a treatment plan with a financial coach, but I give you a tremendous amount of credit for you didn't go and purchase a fancy car immediately, nothing against fancy cars, but you said, hey, we're going to live off of what my wife makes, and you're saving what you made.
Yeah, she's amazing, and she was on board with the plan. And I always tell people it's a lot easier to spend money because it's just easier. You could go buy a nice car because now you're making six figures. So it's easy to do those things. I think it's very hard when you just kind of look at the money accumulating, and then you want to pay off debts. This was our personal goal, like I said. So that's what we did.
So you're saving in this account for us. And one of our sponsors is Student Loan Planner. And one of my most youngest and newest dentists I admire the most, Dr. Miles, his wife and him were both dentists. They had over $600,000 in debt together. And he came to one of the original boost camps for us. And he said,
I think I met him that boot camp. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You met him at the first one you came to. He came on before that. He said, Paul, he's a raving fan of mine. He's a great guy. Also in tremendous shape, so that kind of annoys me sometimes.
He is.
But he said, of all the sponsors and people you have brought to me, the Swells, the Local Meds, Travis Hornsby from Student Loan Planner was the best for my wife and I, because they were both dentists. And basically, Travis tells you how there's different ways to pay off loans that make sense or not make sense. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do total deep dive, but what was your loan repayment strategy when you were saving this money? Were you just like paying as much as you can each month, breaking it up into months? I'll let you share with us.
Yeah, no. So what we did is, like, for the first year, we didn't really, I was just doing the minimum payments, but we've had enough to like pay off big chunks because I already was in talks with the bank. I was working with B of A, and they told me you need about 5 to 10% at the time.
Yeah.
They said 10% is ideal of the practice purchase. 5% should be enough.
I want to jump in and say very important point for us. You are so calm and easygoing, but what you just said, listen, people who are in their car at the gym, do not pay all of your money to student loans, because Correct. If you have no savings, the bank will likely not want to lend you money. This isn't a never thing. This is a most thing. So what Firas just shared was, if he purchased a practice, you could tell us what the purchase price is if you're comfortable, or make one up, but 5 to 10% of a purchase price of a $700,000 practice means $35,000 to $70,000 in savings. Did I share that kind of in the right way for us?
Yeah. And I didn't know the practice price, what it's going to be. So I was just more on the paranoid side, I guess. We were just saving, because I didn't know what the practice is going to end up being, how much it's going to be. So we were just accumulating, just the savings. And I was in communication with Bank of America. And the guy here that helped me, he was great. Everything went very smooth. So when it came time to actually like go through the numbers and everything, the purchase price for the practice was $470,000.
Gotcha. 470. So that's why, like, if someone's saying, hey, I'm going to buy a $500,000 practice, try to have 50 grand in non-retirement assets, right? Try to have $50,000.
Correct. Yeah. The bank wants to see that you have cash and you're liquid. So that's the most important thing for the bank. They don't care about your the amounts of debt you have. They care kind of about your monthly payments, and they want to make sure you have 5 to 10%. They just like to see cash.
Now, any question I ask that's too personal for us, you don't have to answer, but it's to see,
it's okay.
to be, even if you're saving all of this money in your account, your associate job, what type of income was that delivering to you yearly?
So I think my first year out, I made, with the 2 jobs, right about close to 200, I think it was.
And you work, you're a hard worker. You're a hard worker now. If we have time, I'll get into your nacho nuts thing. You still do, that I half admire, half think is nacho nuts. It's one of those things. But you were working how many days a week as an associate?
6 days a week.
And this was for 2 separate jobs.
Yes.
So you were making about $200,000 a year. Was that in line with kind of what your friends were making? Is that what dentists should expect? If somebody said to you, hey, Dr. Z, what should I expect to make out of dental school? Most of the time, not the guy in Crushing-It-ville who makes $1 million a year in a town you've never heard of, not the person who works in New York City with 8,000 dentists on a corner, makes 80 grand. Give our listeners and viewers, because I'm 45 for us, I graduated 20 years ago, what's sort of this range that people should expect to make as a full-time associate?
Good question. So one of the practices I was working with, I had great mentorship, but it was more on the slower side, I would say. And the other practice was more on the busier side. So I think, I don't know what the ranges are right now for associates, but I think because I think it was slightly north of 200 what I made the first year. So I think if you're in that range, 150 to 200 first year out, I think it's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Not many jobs pay that much.
Yeah, and don't be so hard on yourself. Why are new dentists so slow? Why are they so slow for us? Here's the answer. Ready for it? Why are new dentists so slow? I hired a new dentist in my practice, and I hired one in 2017. And the older patients were like, we don't want the new dentist. She's slow, and we want you, Paul. And I said, I think she's trying to do a better job than me, right? And I actually believe that, right? So sometimes new dentists are trying to do such a good job because they're in the dental school mentality. They do have to figure out how to get the goodish I talk about. Number 2, they don't know the patients. If you had to go into your practice on Monday for us and see every patient, new patient, that wouldn't be easy for you, would it?
No.
So when you're an associate, give yourself, I don't know if the word is empathy or grace, that don't judge yourself too harshly. If you're making under 6 figures working full-time, ask more questions about that, because there might be something, like you said, for us that was a little too slow or not enough patience. But I think that's great. So you're making this money, you're saving it, you're paying off your loans, and you're also saving money to purchase the practice at the same time.
Correct. That was the main goal. The main goal was to purchase a practice, I guess 2 main goals, in order for us to finish the student loans as soon as we can.
Now, we got a question which I was going to ask anyway.
Yes.
And you can add, let's ask about your personal experiences first, and then I want to ask, we'll both share this. Did you work were these 2 private practices, 2 DSOs, or a private practice in the DSO?
One of them was a private practice, and then one of them now is kind of a mini DSO, but back then it was more of a bigger group practice. They had multiple practices.
And what I talk about is trends, right? So if you go to California, there's probably going to be traffic, right? Every time I was in LA, they would say, it's going to be 30 minutes if there's no traffic, and it would take an hour. And I said, could you just tell me the time when there's going to be traffic? Because there's never not any traffic. So the trend is a lot of traffic in LA. So trends don't mean all the time, but what are some of the benefits that you found working in a private practice, whether it was financial, morale? What were some of the benefits?
Both of the offices I worked at were great. One office was really about systems, I would say, and that was the mini DSO that now they're a mini DSO. So systems, I guess, implementation, job descriptions, everything in writing, for assistants, for hygienists, for ordering. I think I took that from that office. And they had great relationship with patients as well. The other private practice was more patients have been coming there for 40, 50 years because it's a really old practice. I think now they're at their 3rd doctor. So it was established, I believe, in the 60s, that practice. So it was a really older practice. So it was kind of nice to see some patients have been coming there for 30, 40, 40 years. So they had really good relationships with patients. So that was pretty amazing.
I like that. I hear some things I can share, and these are just different treatment plans. So one of the benefits for working for DSOs, in my experience, I've never worked for one, but I've connected many to them, is they really know how much dentistry is available for their associate to do. And oftentimes you may be replacing a retiring dentist. So are you a true associate or a replacement owner? And one of the reasons dentists will make more at DSOs is not necessarily because they're paid a higher percentage, but because there's a greater volume of dentistry for you to do. Is that something you've seen or would agree with too for us?
I agree with that. I've seen it more. In my case, I was busier at the private practice than that mini DSO.
What was the factors that made you busier there?
Location.
Gotcha.
Yeah, demographics. It was mainly it was about an hour away from the city, so it was rural.
And I'm going to ask, so one of the things you've seen me do, I have like 3 good skills for us. Dunking's not one of them, but I've done a lot of speaker training, which I think helped me a lot as a dentist. So I vary my tone, I vary my speed. I always say, if you really are talking to a patient and you want to get a point across, like bridges will tear down the other 2 teeth, an implant won't touch the other 2 teeth. That's how you say it. You don't say, hey, Mrs. Smith, do you know that a bridge does not? Bridge tears in, because people, you see the energy behind that for us is different. So it's a good tip. So here's the energy behind this. If you are looking for a job in dentistry that's not your own practice, this is one of the most important questions to ask to the practice owner. Hopefully you're talking to the dental practice owner. If you're talking to the regional director of the DSO, who's a non-dentist, that is an orange flag. And here's the question to ask, because I'm going to ask the DSO, how often will I be the only dentist working at that practice? How often will I be? Because Firas shared he had an x-ray problem and he asked the dentist on site. Our associates can FaceTime us, can text us, can walk down the hall and ask us. It can be incredibly difficult, no matter how much you're making, to be the only dentist on site earlier in your career. Anything you want to add to that for us, or?
Yeah, it's very true. So on Saturdays, when I started working, was the only day I would be by myself. And that was kind of a challenging day if I started endo or doing something I was slightly, out of my comfort zone where I had to push myself.
And also, when you're an associate for a private practice or DSO, when you're the associate, you're in charge of the place pretty much. Now, you're not necessarily going to be taking payments or figuring out EOBs, but you are the only person who's licensed to do the thing that needs to be done, like check the hygiene patients and drill on the teeth and do the exams. So I do remember for us, I am not a fan personally of the solo practice model for me, because I always like to hide when the hygienist comes and looks for an exam and hope they ask somebody else. So yeah. I did for a few years, every Thursday, I was the solo GP at our satellite practice. And it was incredibly stressful for me. The work was not stressful. I was not doing all on fours. I was not doing high-level procedures. I was doing restorative dentistry, implants, hygiene checks, and emergencies. But since I was the only person there who could answer questions, I owned the place too. No one else was there besides me. It's tough. So I just think those are really good points there. So kind of round out this payment of the $493,000. What did it feel like to send in the last payment? How did you do that? Would you do it this way again? Tell our listeners and viewers that.
Yeah, my goal was by the age of 30 to do it. Unfortunately, I could not achieve that. By the age of 31 is when we achieved that goal. So that was the goal originally, is by 30 to be done with it. But it took a year extra, I guess.
I want to say I watch TikTok is an amazing platform. Yes, there's very crazy things on there, but there's also types of inspirational things. And I watch this parenting advice, and I think this is a really good tip for your team, for your children. Don't tell people I'm proud of you. So if I say to my kids, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of you, it sounds nice, but I'm kind of creating this dynamic for us that they always have to make me proud, right? I'm the dad, they're the kids. So what we should say to our children is, you should be proud of yourself. So for us, you should be proud of yourself for doing that. And 31 or 30 is insignificant for doing that.
It is.
I really admire that you gave us a full understanding of having a spouse. But listen, you got to have a spouse that's on board. And this isn't a judgment, but if your spouse is like, what the heck,
True.
we've been struggling for all these years, I want to go to Positano instead of Will on salary, you have to have those discussions with your spouse, even if they are willing to be the one who uses their income.
Yeah, we put everything off, honestly, like buying a bigger house, buying a newer car, buying anything really. We just lived like we were students still the first few years, until we reached that goal. That was kind of our main goal. But the most important thing, in my opinion, was to have enough cash on the side to where you could buy the practice. After you buy it, then you could start dumping pretty much as much as you can, if that's something you want to do, because that's kind of what we did, and that worked out great for us, because it was our goal. And then the first year you buy the practice, there's also tax advantages too, where, you know, goodwill, equipment, those are write-offs from your income too, so that helps as well.
And getting the right accounting team is important. I want to share that we are totally.
I didn't know any of this stuff, to be honest with you,
right?
Until, you know,
get the right professionals around you helping you. You can text BUY to 215-798-9897. BUY to 215-798-9897. That allows you to make a totally complimentary how to buy a practice call with my team. We're going to keep for us about 10 more minutes with a few questions here. For us, I'm a current D2, and I know I want to own a practice 2 to 3 years out of school. Sound like you. I would love to work for a private practice doctor as my first associate job, but would a private practice doctor be hesitant to hire me if they know my ambition is not to stay on as an associate? Should I just work for a DSO instead until I'm ready to buy? So what type of advice would you give?
Not necessarily. Honestly, if you go into the mentality too, potentially, of working in that practice a few years where you have some type of agreement to buy that dentist out, I think that would be a lot smoother, in my opinion. Because when I came in, you know, it was just kind of the new guys in, you know, sometimes the dentist doesn't tell the staff he's selling. So then it's kind of a shock for everyone. So I would still encourage that person to try to find a private practice, and ideally try to find a private practice for somebody who's a little older, maybe that's thinking of retiring in the next few years. I think that would be a very smooth transition if it works out that way.
I want to add to that. That's awesome, valuable advice. One thing I want to add to that, and the next question fused in this, is I'm interviewing for an associateship where the owner wants me to take over within a few years. What are the numbers I should be asking to see? So what you shared for us makes a lot of sense on paper, but as someone who's been doing this for a long time, one of the biggest problems is during the time the owner wants to hire an associate, they may not want to make less money. So unless the practice is collecting, I would say $1.2 million or more, it's not going to be a 2-dentist practice. So during that time, if you have an owner that says, listen, I have this $1.5 million practice, I've been making $600,000 a year, I'm tired, I'll have you as my associate for 2 years. Awesome person from Zoom. I won't violate Zoom HIPAA. I'm very afraid of HIPAA at all times for us. HIPAA's HIPAA. I don't mess with either of them, even on Zoom. But this person saying, what should they be asking for? One, numbers wise, is the total collections of the practice. If it's not over 1.2 million, I would totally forget about it. Look for closer to 1.5. But even if you have the 1.5, the owner has to have the mindset to scale back and make less money and share with you. Because the biggest problem for associates in private practices is owners not really realizing they don't need an associate like a car I talk about. They want one like a boat, and they disrupt your entire life by not analyzing the true volume of patients in the practice. I will plug my own thing called the Dental Nacho Supreme On Demand CE. If you do text Supreme to 215-798-9897, we have 200 plus hours you can watch at the gym, listen in your car, anytime on Clinical and Business CE, where we go over this in detail. But those would be the numbers I would be asking for. I want to share one other answer here was, what is the value of a practice? 2 times the net profit, which is seller discretionary earnings. So I'll walk us through this for us, and you can add a little bit about yours. Dr. Nacho's House of Dentistry, great name for a practice, by the way, for us. Dr. Nacho brings in $1 million. He works by himself, and he makes $370,000 a year total. Forget about EBITDA for a solo practice. That's what I make. You shake the practice upside down, 370 falls out. Okay, that's my seller discretionary earnings. If you multiply that by 2, it's $740,000. And that's an easy way to get a start, not an end to valuation. If Dr. Faraz has $1 million practice and you shake his practice upside down and only 200,000 falls out, would you pay the same for my practice? Is your practice worth less now? It's less than mine, right?
Yeah.
And that is not asked enough, because that $200,000 profit is really only worth 400,000, but the bank will loan you the same amount of money most of the time, because all the bank cares about for us is you paying the bank loan. Is that correct?
That is very correct. And I think to give the bank credit too, if the bank thinks this office is not a good purchase, I would listen to them, because they want to get paid. So that's how it
right.
was in my
and
case.
For us, that's such good advice, because they don't care how much money you make, they just want to be paid. So B of A, which is a sponsor, Provide, which is a sponsor, don't expect the bank to protect you, except if they say it's not a good risk. That means it's really not a good risk. Because for us, how many times has the bank called you up and said, hey, for us, how's your life going after purchasing this practice?
That's
you make
once you sign the papers.
They'll only call if you don't pay the loan. So they don't know if you're making $100,000 a year or 500, and they don't care. They just want you to pay your bank loan. If you get to know your banker and your friends and see him at CE, he might say, oh, I grew the practice. They say, oh, great for us, because just everyone understand, most of these loans are 10-year loans.
Yes.
You pay them monthly. Bank doesn't care if you're a millionaire or 100,000-aire, but you care. So do not expect the bank to protect you. That's why you want to build a team. You guys asked them. Go ahead.
And that's going back to EBITDA too. That was kind of my case, but I was lucky enough to. It was two times EBITDA. The previous practice owner had a very low overhead, so his production was a lot lower, but he was keeping about 50%. His overhead was. So it worked out. I think it was like 1.8 of EBITDA, or either 2 or slightly less than 2. The EBITDA was.
Yeah, and that's why you want to get a good team to help you analyze it. You also want to be. This is something that doesn't show up on I'm a big sports fan. So yes, you know how many points I scored in basketball when I was in high school. I was actually very good at 3-point shots, like I showed in that video. But you didn't know. Maybe I was also the guy who picked people up when they were down, right? Maybe I was the person who said we could do it. That doesn't show up on the stat sheet. One of the things you want to think about as a practice is, if an owner has like 50% overhead, can you run a practice like that owner? Some of them don't use many materials. Sometimes their technology is non-existent. So you have to say, it doesn't make them right and you wrong, but can I do it the way they did it? I'm going to ask this for us. After buying the practice, what strategies would you employ to pay off your own loans faster with all the challenges? So you made a good point for us. I mean, watch this. This should be very positive about dentistry for us. We should all be very positive. You know who loves dentists like our grandmothers loved us? Banks. Imagine if someone came to you. I know you paid off your loans for us, but if you didn't, they would have loaned you for the practice. Imagine someone going, hi, my name's Paul, and I have taken out $600,000 in loans. I have $600,000 in debt. I would like another 800,000. And they give it to us.
They do that.
Would you give it to someone who said that? I wouldn't, right? So we should be so positive, because the way to pay your debt faster is to become a practice owner. Talk to us a little bit about this. Maybe even use your good buddy Ben as sort of a insight, or someone that you know from dental school. How has owning a practice helped them pay their loans off faster?
A lot of the tax advantages, especially the first year that you purchase a practice, there's a lot of write-offs from equipment to goodwill. You get to do it over many years, to a lot of different things that I was not 100% aware of till kind of, at the end of the year, really. And then as I was working, the accountant was telling me that. Great accountant, I still have on my team. So the tax advantages, and then just you get to keep more of your production if you are running an efficient practice, I would say. My overhead did go up a little bit because the previous dentist was very, very do it yourself on everything, not digital. Like they had the old phone system, no reminder. They had to like call the patients. So a few things that I added, but the production, we were able, fortunately, to double the production.
And I think that's awesome, Russ. It's really important to say. And then also, as someone who sells practices, DSOs have contaminated what dentists expect to make, because or even this is like early on for us, and me being a broker, very nice young guy said, Paul, why would I buy this practice? The dentist only makes 200 grand a year. I make 350 working for a DSO. I said, good point, right? I said, if you want to keep working for that DSO, don't buy a practice. I will share. So I don't want to brag in this moment for us.
Oh, no.
But I don't think there's somebody on earth who talks to more dentists than me, who communicates with more dentists than me, who text messages more dentists than me, who Facebook DMs more dentists than me. Conservatively, of 60,000 people in our audience, including all of our text and Facebook, I go to courses, I'm a broker. What I will share is that it's very rare to see someone work as an associate at a DSO for more than 5 years, even if they make a lot of money. The benefits to owning a practice may be ones that aren't about the pure amount of income you make each year. It can be about your morale, your vision. And really, at the end of the day, guys, the only reason I'm a dentist here, I wanted to be a professional basketball player. That didn't work out. I probably would have been, my mindset would have been probably better for like a CEO, but I'm super easy to please. I would have been, if I was an accountant for us, there'd be accounting nachos. If I was an attorney, we'd have attorney nachos. I could probably do like 15 different careers and be satisfied. And my dad always said it was great to be your own boss. He coached our sports teams. So even my brother, in the midst of running that circus, he'll say, I don't have to ask anybody if I want to take off. So I'm just inspiring the next generation of dentists that there's a tremendous value and still in being your own boss as a practice owner. And you probably see that as well.
And one thing I'd add too is you're correct. It's not all about money. But I think a lot of dentists, we kind of, we're surrounded by a lot of dentists, a lot of high performers, I would say, kind of take things for granted in the sense that, we think like, oh, okay, everyone is doing this much work. Everyone is like this. But being a practice owner too, I think it's an advantage versus working at a DSO, because we have a DSO nearby here. I mean, I have a lot of practices around me. I think just being genuine with the patients, treating them right, they start telling their family and friends about you. And then they like to see the same face every time they come in. So I think that's an advantage. I think that's a big advantage, especially knowing that you're a private practice. And I'm like very straightforward with patients. I kind of sit them down, we take the intro pictures and go over everything. And, lucky for us, we have like great Google reviews. I think we're at 190 reviews now, 5 stars. So
that's awesome. Right. You guys, do a great job on social media too, promoting yourself. I'm going to do just two more questions for us to let you go.
Sure.
Because I know you got a family day too. You've been great. But someone asked, can you give some recommendations of oral surgery and implant hands-on CE? Is it reasonable to expect after course completion I can place implants or do more complex extractions? Thank you. So I have some examples for this. So you give me yours.
Yes, this is not an endorsement or anything, or I don't get paid for this or anything, but the best, I think it was 15 or 16, the best $15,000 I've spent in my life. It's not on a vacation. It's at Implant Pathway here in Tempe, actually. The hands-on fast track course. I've taken many hands-on implant courses, one with Steven Rasner too, the AAID as well. They have a great a cadaver course too. And I am taking actually a course in August, the California Implant Institute. They're in San Diego. So that's my next course that I'm going to. That's all on 4. But to me, implants hands-on would be the best investment you would make, especially if you enjoy it. I love doing surgery and implants. I feel very passionate about it. So I love doing it and helping patients. So I think if you love it, it's going to be challenging sometimes, especially in the beginning, because you're not going to be sure of, even till this day, I run into challenges. It's not easy because each case is different. So you kind of.
I love it for us. Also, no one complains about the color of the implant when you're done. It's great. The implant's in, no complaints, right? So even though there's a lot of, I also share, I do get paid for this because they're a sponsor, but through knowing me, you get a good deal. Carl Corner is a GP focused oral surgery focused GP. They run tremendous courses that are awesomely affordable. You can get a discount through Dental Nachos. This is a different text number, everyone. Just text Carl to 215-543-6454. Text Carl to 215-543-6454. And this other offer I have, if you want a Business of Dentistry true training program with Dr. Mark Costas. I'm a member of the DSN. They're a sponsor of Dental Nachos.
He's great.
They give you a 45-day free pass to the DSN. It has a private community for chat in a Facebook community. It has CE. You can ask questions as an associate or practice owner that you may not feel comfortable posting on Dental Nachos. And some of you, I would tell you, don't post them on just free Facebook groups. I highly recommend, if you're watching, they are a sponsor of our group, text DSN to 215-543-6454. Take advantage of that 45-day free pass. You'll be glad that you did. But the thing I'm going to kindly annoy Firas to share is, when I asked everybody at the end of Super Dentist Boost to share why they are glad that they came to Philadelphia, why they left their family, why they spent their money at the hotels, why they ate more calories than they probably planned to. That part was fun.
Yes.
You said something magical about we are in our own cave or in our own hole. So you've shown you're a successful practice owner, you've paid off your loans, but you came to in-person CE. On the screen, we're having one in April with the amazing Dr. Lincoln Harris. You can text link to 215-543-6454 to register. But it's important to me that in-person CE doesn't go away for us. It's important to me as a person, as a professional, as a dentist human. What was that reason that you said, hey, I came to Super Dentist Boost and it cost me money, it cost me time, but I'm glad I did it?
Yeah. So honestly, like I said at the course too, at the seminar, we do, especially me as a solo practice owner, I guess, we kind of are in our own little cave, I always say, because even at the office too, you're kind of in your own little cave. So it's nice to go, get motivated, talk to other colleagues. I think it's very, very important, especially for dentists, because dentistry has a lot of challenges and stresses. And I feel like only dentists you could talk to someone else, but dentists specifically know exactly what you're telling them. So I think it's really nice. It's really good to connect with other people and just form a nice connection with other people, and just to get motivated and get reboosted, really.
Yeah. And make yourself do these things. I would love for you guys to come to one in Philadelphia this year. We have more beyond this. This one's going to be particularly amazing for us.
The food is amazing in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Food, fun. You shared so much amazing value with us. And one of the things that you shared, and I start off a lot of my lectures with this, I give you guys one of my fun and also funny jokes. I say, I'm walking down Philadelphia, got my 4-year-old on my shoulders, and this older couple stops me and says, young man, enjoy those times. Enjoy those times. Those are the best times of your life. Enjoy being a dad. Don't let it go by too fast. And I go, oh, thank you. How old are your kids? They go, 40. I go, do you wish they were 4 again? They go, God, no. I go, that is the weirdest way to describe the best time of your life. And as a parent, I say, having a 4-year-old is great, but you don't want to stay 4 forever. Being a practice owner, your practice acts like it's 4 years old for the rest of your life. It's awesome. You get to show it off. It's aggravating. It's unpredictable. So get help in managing it as a practice owner, because it never changes. You talked about the people management part for us. You talked about the financial part, and you just authentically shared that being a practice owner in 2023, you can be successful. It's totally possible as a new dentist, but you got to do things the right way. I'll let you kind of have the wrap up here. Tell people how they can reach out to you, and if there's anything else they missed that you wanted to share.
I love helping people, especially I love, in the words of Howard Ferran, like my homie dentists, they could reach me. My cell phone number is 602-481-9876.
We're going to say that one more time. It's 60 to reach Dr. Frost. It's 602-481 9876. 9876.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to any. I love helping. I have a few younger dentists, a few years, younger than me that I pretty much were in communication if they have any questions, and I give them my honest opinion, because I'm still a new dentist in a sense. So whatever I know, I'm more than happy to share, and whatever I don't know, I'm more than happy to put them in connection with someone that knows the answer, possibly.
Osman, how can they follow you on Instagram?
Well, for my page, I think Desert Breeze Dentistry, that's the office page, and then Firas Ziadet on Facebook, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to take us off of Facebook here, but we're still in the background here. Firas, you did a great job on your first time here. We're with all the Zoom people.
Thank you.
I would love if you're in Zoom, put in the Q&A in the chat. Is there something you learned from Dr. Frost that you'll take away? I see some of my OG buds in here. I won't violate Zoom HIPAA. You guys ask great questions of Frost. Frost, was that a fun hour of time?
Yes. Thanks for having me. Thanks for encouraging me to do this too. I know I would have not done it if you haven't motivated me to do it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're awesome. And what this does for me and you, even though we spend this time on a Sunday or do this, is that video you can replicate. So I can tell this story to a dentist. So I encourage you at your office tomorrow, make one video a day of the most common questions they ask you. My thing, what does insurance cover? I teach my team, great question. A lot of people ask about insurance. Insurance isn't insurance. It acts more like a coupon. Coupon that has benefits, but also blackout dates. We're going to do the best job possible to maximize the benefit of your coupon. So everybody listening, including Dr. Frost, the more videos you make, the less stress you will have. Answer an important question in your practice, from what's an implant to how does dental insurance work. It raises the game for you and your team.
I agree.
Well, I hope your wife isn't too upset with me, Frost. I'm going to let you go back here.
That's why I did it early in Arizona time. Yeah. So hopefully they're just waking up, and then I'll be home right for breakfast. So
we got a practice owner boost coming up in August. So I'll kindly annoy you and Ben to come back out here.
No, we will. We'll make sure to come.
I'm going to do one thing for the people in the, could you just say your phone number one more time for us?
Oh, sure. 602-481-9876. And then that's my cell number. And then Facebook for us, FERAS, Ziadet, my name. Then I'll pop up on Facebook. So on Messenger.
Awesome, Frost. Well, you're an amazing guy. I'm so honored to be your friend, and have a great
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Talk to you later. See everybody later. Thanks for watching in.
Thanks, everyone.